Okay, hey guys, happy Monday. Today we are going to be finishing the Cyclops on this story we started on Friday. We also have a few other things that we need to talk about this week going forth with our online learning platform. The first thing is a recap. I will be offering a recap of the story every day in the videos, but for those of you who are doing it on your own time and you're not watching these videos, I will also be posting an animated recap on my Instagram story. So please make sure that you go watch that if you want some recap leading up to where we are in the story right now. The next thing is your STEMS list number 4. You are getting that list today. It is posted in your Google Classroom assignment along with a PowerPoint with all the definitions. You're going to need to go through that PowerPoint, see those definitions. You have 25 STEMs on STEMS list number 4. That is 5 more than you've had on any other list. So please make sure that you are looking at those. Remember, when we return, we will have a cumulative test on STEMS list numbers 1 through 4. So please make sure that you are doing these activities with these STEMs. We will have activities for you to complete this week that'll be posted on Google Classroom. So please make sure that you continue to stay on top of your work, especially with the STEMs list in this week going forth. So next thing, make sure you complete your warm-up number 4 in Google Classroom. You need to answer and complete sentences in order to receive credit, just like always. Remember, I'm starting to be a little bit more strict with these answers. I need you to be doing this work, putting in the time. I don't think I'm asking you to do a lot with these warm-ups and with these questions. So please make sure that you are giving your time to answer them completely. So that warm-up is in Google Classroom now, so please make sure that you complete that before 11:59 tonight. Okay, so the brief recap I want to give as to where we are right now in the Odyssey. If you look at this map of Odysseus' journey home, remember he starts out in Troy. We skipped some of the steps of where he goes, but he's kind of moving around. Remember we talked about the Lotus Eaters. All of his men fell asleep on this island. They couldn't get off until he had basically dragged them because they had lost the will to get home because they had eaten some of the fruit. So then he makes it to the land of the Cyclops, which is where we are starting the story. Remember we saw the Cyclops in our Greek myths, in our Greek mythology unit, and now we are seeing them again. We have met Polyphemus. Odysseus and his men are trapped in his cave, and Polyphemus has, at this point, went outside. He is going about his everyday routine, and Odysseus and his men are creating this weapon. Basically, they've taken this big tree, they've whittled down the end of it, and now it's a really sharp end. So we're going to see what he tries or he intends to do with this weapon to Polyphemus whenever he returns to the cave. So if you look at your document, if you're following along on either on smartphone, on another tab, or on a printed off version, we are picking up on line 320. It is on the first page on the second column. So please make sure that you are paying attention as we go forth with this. I held this in the fire's heart and turned it, toughening it, then hid it well back in the cavern, under one of the dung piles in profusion there. Now came the time to toss for it. Who ventured along with me? Whose hand could bear to thrust and grind that spike in Cyclops' eye when mild sleep had mastered him? So, Odysseus' plan is now evident here as to what he intends to do to Polyphemus. He wants to get Polyphemus to fall asleep. Once he falls asleep, he's going to take this big weapon, stab him in the eye. Hopefully, I'm intending to blind him. Remember, Cyclops only have one eye. As luck would have it, the men I would have chosen won the toss, 4 strong men, and I made 5 as captain. At evening came the shepherd with his flock, his woolly flock. The rams as well this time entered the cave by some shepherding whim or some god's bidding. None were left outside. He hefted his great boulder into place and sat him down to milk the bleeding ewes, in proper order put the lambs to suck, and swiftly ran through all of his evening chores. Then he caught 2 more men and feasted on them. My moment was at hand. I went forward holding an ivy bowl of my dark drink, looking up saying, Cyclops, try some wine. Here's liquor to wash down your scraps of men. Taste it, and see the kind of drink we carried under our planks. I meant it for an offering if you would help us home, but you are mad, unbearable, a bloody monster. After this, will any other traveler come to see you? He seized and drained the bowl, and it went down so fiery and smooth he called for more. Give me another. Thank you kindly. Tell me, how are you called? I'll make a gift will please you. Even Cyclops know the wine grapes grow out of the grassland and loam in heaven's rain. But here's a little bit of nectar and ambrosia. Nectar and ambrosia, remember, that's the food of the gods. 3 bowls I brought him, and he poured them down. I saw the fuddle and flush come over him. Then I sang out in cordial tones, Cyclops, You ask my honorable name. Remember the gift you promised me? And I shall tell you, my name is Nobody. Mother, father, and friends, everyone calls me Nobody. So the Cyclops is basically asking Odysseus, what is your name? I would like to know who you are. And Odysseus is saying, my name's Nobody. So he's telling a lie here. He's making this up. So we're going to see how that helps him a little bit later on. And he said, Nobody's my meat then, after I eat his friends. Others come first. There's a noble gift now. Even as he spoke, he reeled and tumbled backward, his great head lolling to one side, and sleep took him like any creature. Drunk, hiccuping, he dribbled streams of liquor and bits of men. So we have the imagery. He falls back. He's kind of intoxicated from this wine that Odysseus was giving him. Bits of men are dripping down him. It's disgusting, but he is asleep. Remember, Polyphemus needs to be asleep for Odysseus' plan to work. Now, by the gods, I drove my big hand spike deep in the embers, charring it again. So he's putting the spike in the fire. Picture that it's getting really, really hot. And cheered my men along with battle talk to keep their courage up. No quitting now. The pike of olive, green though it had been, reddened and glowed as if about to catch. I drew it from the coals, and my four fellows gave me a hand, lugging it near the Cyclops, as more than natural force nerved them. Straight forward they sprinted, lifted it, and rammed it deep in his crater's eye, and I leaned on it, turning it as a shipwright turns a drill in planking, having men below to swing the two-handled strap that spins it in the groove. So his men get a running start, they jump, they take the spike, and they slam it in the Cyclops' eye, so that they can blind him. Remember, pictured this huge plank. It's been in the fire. It's kind of hot. So we're going to see how his eye is oozing from this being stabbed in it. So with our brand, we bored that great eye socket while blood ran out around the red hot bar. Eyelid and lash were seared. The pierced ball hissed, broiling, and the roots popped. So picture this imagery. It's disgusting imagery that we're getting of the Cyclops' eye. They have stabbed him in the eye with this hot, huge stake. And it is sizzling, it's boiling, blood is pouring down. It's disgusting, and the Cyclops is going to react to that in just a minute. In a smithy, one sees a white-hot axe head or an adze plunged and wrung in a cold tub, screeching steam, the way they make soft iron hail and hard, just so the eyeball hissed around the spike. The Cyclops bellowed, and the rock roared around him, and we all fell back in fear. Clawing his face, he tugged the bloody spike out of his eye, threw it away, and his wild hands went groping. Then he set up a howl for Cyclops who lived in caves on windy peaks nearby. Some heard him, and they came by divers' way to clump around outside and call. So, what he does, he's been stabbed in the eye, he wakes up, he's clawing at his eye, and he moves, or he's yelling for his friends. He doesn't move the rock aside, so he's yelling for his friends, someone come help me, I've been stabbed. And so other Cyclops that are on this land, in this land of the Cyclops, come up to him. Some heard him, and they came by divers' way to clump around outside and call, what ails you, Polyphemus? Why do you cry so sore in the starry night? You will not let us sleep. Sure, no man's driving off your flock. No man has tricked you, ruined you. Out of the cave, the mammoth Polyphemus roared in answer, nobody's tricked me, nobody's ruined me. To this rough shout they made a sage reply, ah well, if nobody has played you foul there in your lonely bed, we are no use in pain given by great Zeus. Let it be your father, Poseidon Lord, to whom you pray. So, saying, they trailed away. So all these Cyclops come up to try to help Polyphemus, and they ask, what ails you? Who's hurt you? And he responds, nobody's hurt me. So the Cyclops hear that, and they said, oh well, okay. And they peace out. They leave him behind. So Odysseus' trickery from earlier on, we see that he was actually tricking the Cyclops by telling him his name was Nobody. If he had told him his name was Odysseus, this line would have read, Odysseus has tricked me, Odysseus has ruined me. And those Cyclops probably would have tried to help and try to kill Odysseus. But he was smart, and he came up with that plan to say, oh, I'm going to tell him my name is Nobody, so that when he yells this out loud, or if he tries to get help, no one's going to help him. And I was filled with laughter to see how like a charm the name deceived them. So Odysseus was smart. He realized his plan worked, and now he's getting a little cocky. He's laughing about it. He's like, yeah, I'm like the coolest. I'm the smartest. Now, Cyclops, wheezing as the pain came on him, fumbled to wrench away the great doorstone and squatted in the breach with his arms thrown wide for any silly beast or man who bolted, hoping somehow I might be such a fool. But I kept thinking how to win the game. Death sat there huge. How could we slip away? I drew on all my wits and ran through tactics, reasoning as a man will for dear life, until a trick came. And it pleased me well. The Cyclops' rams were handsome, fat with heavy fleeces and dark violet. 3 abreast, I tied them silently together, twining cords of willow from the ogre's bed, then slung a man under each of the middle one to ride there safely, shielded left and right. So, what Odysseus' plan here is that he takes 3 sheep, he puts them together, ties them together, and he puts a man under the middle one, so that if Polyphemus reaches out to try to see where these men are, he's just going to touch sheep, and he's never going to touch that man who's under the middle sheep. Where did I leave off? I took the woolliest ram, the choicest of the flock, and hung myself under his kinky belly, pulled up tight, with fingers twisted deep in sheepskin ringlets for an iron grip. So, breathing hard, we waited until morning. When dawn spread out her fingertips of rose, the rams began to stir, moving for pasture. And peals of bleating echoed around the pens where dams with udders full called for milking. Blinded and sick with pain from his head wound, the master stroked each ram, then let it pass. But my men riding on the pectoral fleece, the giant's blind hands blundering never found. Last of them all my ram, the leader, came, weighted by wool and me with my meditation. The Cyclops patted him, and then he said, "Sweet cousin ram, why lag behind the rest in the night cave? You never linger so, but graze before them all, and go afar to crop sweet grass, and take your stately way, leading along the streams until at evening you run to be the first one in the fold." So we have this moment. Odysseus or Polyphemus stops this last ram and he says, "Why are you last? You're normally the first out of here." So we have this suspicion, this intensity building because Odysseus is trying to make it out of the cave, but he's stuck under this ram, and Polyphemus is petting it. "Oh, you had brain and voice to tell me where he may be now, dodging all my fury." So he's talking to his ram now, saying, "I wish you could tell me where Odysseus is." And we have this irony because Odysseus is actually hiding under the sheep. Bashed by this hand and bashed on the rock wall, his brains would strew the floor, and I should have rest from the outrage nobody worked upon me. Again, that trickery from Odysseus, or nobody worked upon me. He sent us into the open then. Close by, I dropped and rolled clear of the ram's belly, going this way and that to untie the men. With many glances back, we rounded up his fat, stiff-legged sheep to take aboard, then drove them down to where the good ship lay. So, not only is he escaping with his men, he is stealing from Polyphemus now. He is taking his sheep so that they can eat the sheep, use the sheep however they want to on this boat. So he is stealing Polyphemus's property now, and drove them down to where the good ship lay. We saw, as we came near, our fellows' faces shining. Then we saw them turn to grief, tallying those who had not fled from death. I hushed them, jerking head and eyebrows up, and in a low voice told them, "Load this herd, move fast, and put the ship's head toward the breakers." So we see Odysseus get to the ship, and he sees his men start to feel some remorse for the fact that their friends have died, their brothers have died. So these people have been killed. They take a moment and they show some sadness, and Odysseus doesn't let them grieve. Odysseus says, "No, pull it together. We have to get going." This could show you 2 things here. This lack of empathy maybe from Odysseus, that he doesn't care that his men died, or maybe the fact that he's trying to be a good leader by showing them that we can't get so caught up in feeling grief for these men. We have to move on if we are going to live. So there's 2 sides to that argument there. They all pitched in at loading, then embarked, and struck their oars out into the sea. Far out, as far offshore as shouted words could carry, I sent back a few to the adversary meaning the person that he's fighting, that in this case Polyphemus. "Oh, Cyclops, would you feast on my companions? Puny am I, in a caveman's hands? How do you like the beating that we gave you, damned cannibal, eater of guests under your roof? Zeus and the gods have paid you. The blind thing in his doubled fury broke a hilltop in his hands and heaved it after us." So Odysseus is looking at Polyphemus. Polyphemus has come out of the cave and he's yelling, "You're a damned cannibal. You ate people who came into your roof. Zeus is going to punish you." And then what Polyphemus does is literally rip a mountain up and yeet it at the people in the ship. So Odysseus was being cocky here. He was saying, kind of trying to taunt Polyphemus as he was leaving this island, and Polyphemus is still trying to hurt them. We see that Odysseus being a little bit over cocky, probably not smart to do when you're not really far away from the island yet. Ahead of our black prow, it struck and sank, whelmed in spewing geyser, a giant wave that washed the ship's stern foremost back to the shore. So he throws this mountaintop, and it actually pushes them back closer to the island. I got the longest boat hook out and stood fending us off with furious nods to all to put their backs into a racing stroke. Row, row, or perish. So the long oars bent, kicking the foam sternward, making head until we drew away, and twice as far, Now when I cupped my hands, I heard the crew in low voices protesting. God's sake, Captain, why bait the beast again? Let him alone. That tidal wave he had made on the first throw all but beached us. All but stove us in. Give him our bearing with your trumpeting. He'll get the range and lobo a boulder. Aye, he'll smash our timbers and our heads together. So his men are saying, Odysseus, literally sit down and shut up. We cannot stand you right now. This is going to result in all of us dying. So please stop being cocky. But we're going to see he doesn't stop. I would not heed them in my glory and spirit, but let my anger flare and yelled, Cyclops! If ever a mortal man inquire how you were put to shame and blinded, tell him Odysseus, raider of cities, took your eye. Laertes' son, whose home's on Ithaca. At this he gave a mighty sob and rumbled, Now comes the weirdo upon me, spoken of old, a wizard, grand and wondrous. Lived here, Telemus, a son of Eurymus, great length of days. He had in his wizardry among the Cyclops, and these things he foretold for time to come. My great eye lost, and at Odysseus' hand, always in my mind, some giant, armed in giant force, would come against me here. So, Polyphemus has actually received a prophecy before. Like our gods used to receive prophecies, he received a prophecy that someone was going to blind him, and that person would be called Odysseus. So, if Odysseus in that cave had said, my name is Odysseus, Polyphemus probably would have just straight up murdered him, because he knew that Odysseus was going to be the one to blind him. But Polyphemus mentions here that he was intending or watching out for someone who was super big, super massive, and that was going to be the person to blind him. He would never suspect that it was this puny little mortal that was going to be the one to blind him. But at this point, Odysseus has revealed his true identity. Now Polyphemus knows that his name is Odysseus. But you, a small, pitiful, and twiggy, you put me down with wine, you blinded me. Come back, Odysseus, and I'll treat you well. Praying the god of earthquake to befriend you, his son I am, for he by his avowal fathered me, and if he will, he may heal me of this black wound, he and no other of all the happy gods or mortal men. So, what Polyphemus is saying, come back, and we will go at this again. I will fight you again. My dad is Poseidon, this god of the sea. So he is saying god of the sea, god of earthquakes as well. Poseidon's a bunch of things, just like we see with most of our gods. So he's kind of, again, taunting Odysseus to try to come back. A few words I shouted in reply to him. If I could take your life, I would, and take your time away and hurl you down to hell. The god of earthquake could not heal you there. At this he stretched his hands out in the darkness toward the sky of stars and prayed Poseidon. So this is Polyphemus praying to his father Poseidon. Oh, hear me, Lord, blue girdler of the islands. If I am thine indeed, and thou art father, grant thy Odysseus, raider of cities, never see his home. Laertes' son, I mean, who kept his hall on Ithaca. Should destiny intend that he shall see his roof again among his family and his fatherland, far be that day, and dark the years between. Let him lose all his companions and return under strange sail to bitter days at home. So how the story ends, Polyphemus is praying to Poseidon. He's saying, please do not let Odysseus get home. And if he does get home, let him return to a really bad situation and let him lose